Okay, I see by my clock that the time to call the Board of Directors regular meeting for Monday, October 16th, 2023. Call to order. You have a roll call, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Here.
Director Duff,
Present.
Director Griffith,
Present.
Vice President Sewell,
Here.
and President Martin.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Okay, since all board members are present, I can skip item 3. Ted, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Sure. Right hand over your heart. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Counselor, would you provide rules of procedure, please?
Yes, according to the rules of procedure adopted by the Board of Directors, all noticed meetings are conducted using Rosenberg's Rules of Order as a procedural guideline. Directors should refrain from responding directly to public comments at meetings of the board. The president of the board presides at all meetings and decides all points of order and procedure during meetings. The president is responsible for the maintenance of order and decorum at all board meetings. No person should be allowed to speak who has not first been recognized by the president. No member of the board should speak more than once upon any one subject until every other member of the board wishing to speak on the subject shall have been given the opportunity to speak. No board member shall interfere with the orderly progress of a board meeting, and the board president regulates the amount of time to be dedicated to a particular agenda item.
Thank you. Item 6, public input. This is the opportunity for members of the public to address the board on matters within the board's jurisdiction. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less. State law prohibits the board from discussing or taking action on any item not listed on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public wishing to address the board?
President Martin, not online.
Okay. Mr. McKenna, no? All right. Since we only have one person at the audience, so. Moving on to item 7, Human Resources Report. Brian?
Thank you, President Martin. Dory, do you have our slides? Perfect. Thank you. I am pleased to introduce some of our dedicated and loyal MSWD employees. We have no new hires this month, so we'll jump right into anniversaries. We have 3 anniversaries to celebrate. We talked about these folks a little bit on Thursday, but together they represent more than 30 years of service for the district and the community we served. First, with 2 years, we would like to honor our government and public affairs, Marion Champion, who could not be with us today. She's been at the district for over 2 years. We've enjoyed having Marion as part of MSWD. Since she has worked in the communication field for the last 20 years, she brings a lot of knowledge and know-how to her position. In the past 2 years, she has worked hard to make inroads with Desert Hot Springs citizens as well as city council and built relationships throughout our community. As I mentioned, she has jury duty this afternoon and can't join us. However, she asked that I pass along her gratitude to the board and management team. She says she has the best coworkers and feels blessed beyond words for the opportunity to work at MSWD and serve our customers. I wish she was here to say that herself. Next, we'd like to honor our innovation and technology manager. Kurt has been with the district officially for 2 years, but has insisted that he's been here an additional 9 years as an IT consultant. Kurt is responsible for directing and guiding our technology-related programs and development of MSWD's overall information system strategy. Unfortunately, his boss is not here today. So Arturo was under the weather today. So Kurt, do you have any words for the board?
Just how grateful I am for this job. I totally love working here every day. Happy to come here, happy to stay late, whatever it takes. I love this district and all my coworkers.
The only thing I will add is I'm very impressed with your willingness to commute from where you live to here. So that's really
It's worth it.
Good. Glad to hear that.
Okay, so next We'd like to honor our Director of Operations, Danny Friend, who has been with the district for 26 years. In those short 26 years, Danny has been a lot of changes to the district, but one thing has remained constant is his love for MSWD and the customers we serve. He's been a driving force behind many of the projects and initiatives, including our septic to sewer and groundwater protection efforts, water testing, compliance programs, and numerous other activities. Detail-oriented and meticulously organized, Danny brings he's a big part of the glue that holds our organization together. Danny, is there anything you'd like to say to the board?
Thank you for the kind words, General Manager Macy. It's been a fun ride. It actually has been a lot of years, a lot of change, a lot of great change, just a lot of reactive change. And yeah, I'm loyal to the agency. It's been a great organization, and serving for the last 26 years has been my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One of the things I hope Danny would bring up was what the effort that he put in during the tropical storm Hillary. If it wasn't for him and Jeff Nutter, who basically worked through the night and into the next day, I think it was a 30-hour shift that both of you worked.
Roughly 30 hours, yeah.
But and Danny did it all from home, which is even more difficult because a hands-on person like himself to stay at home and not be able to grab his boots and go out and do stuff was a little bit difficult for all of us, but especially for him.
I don't want to talk from back there. Yeah, it was difficult for me to do that. I found out something about myself that those types of situations, the adrenaline rush is one thing, and you're typically busy from the beginning until it's all done. But just those moments of time, a 30-minute time between phone calls, it wears on you. So it was one of some of the larger, let's say, emergencies that we've dealt with. Some of the newest things that we've ever dealt with. We've never had anything like that happen, but it was a good team behind that could be here. It was limited, so we learned a lot. But yeah, I did learn something about myself. It's easier for me to be in it than to be at home chomping at the bit. So I know I made probably several people, they probably grew tired of me. So anyhow, thank you.
Aren't you glad that you aren't working for a water district in Florida where you go through this just about every year?
Yeah.
What
My son has been back twice. He's a lineman, so he's been back twice dealing with electricity. I know that just the things that he came back and told me is I'll deal with what we deal with any day. So thank you again.
Thank you, Danny.
President Martin, this concludes our HR report for today. Again, the board and I genuinely appreciate all of these employees, and we commend them for their dedication and commitment to our customers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 8. Award of Well 34 Rehabilitation Project to Legend Pump and Well Service Incorporated, and contract amendment for Kyle Groundwater. It's recommended to authorize the interim general manager to take all necessary actions to award the Well 34 Rehabilitation Project to Legend Pump and Well Services, Inc. in the amount of $565,622 plus a 10% contingency for a total of $622,228.20, and augment the project budget for an additional $219,000 for the cost of construction, inspection, and labor and compliance oversight, and do all things necessary to complete the project, and amend and increase the existing contract with Kyle Groundwater, Inc. in the amount of $45,950 for a total of $110,751 to provide hydrogeological services for the Well 34 Rehabilitation Project. Brian.
Now that's just the short summary, so you can't imagine what's in the staff report, right? We gave our presentation on this on Thursday. Eric, our engineering manager, is available for any additional questions. But as we spoke of on Thursday, this project is going to be fully funded by the developer that is now managing the Skyborn project. This well is part of that subdivision. So from that perspective, these numbers They are a little bit higher than we expected, but we do have provisions in our last agreement that we signed with them to make sure that they do cover these additional costs.
Okay,
Any questions?
any questions from the board? Amber? Robert? Ted?
Not gonna cost us anything.
Ivan?
No, thank you. And I'll make a motion to approve the item.
Do we have a second?
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes,
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Griffith,
Aye.
Vice President Sewell,
Yes,
President Martin.
Yes,
Thank you. Motion passes.
okay. Moving on to item 9, First Amendment to Contract Agreement with Walton Motors and Controls Incorporated for motor rewind repairs for water production well and booster pump motors for 2023 to 2024. It's recommended to authorize the interim general manager to amend the contract agreement with Walton Motors and Controls Incorporated for the motor rewind repairs for water production well and booster pump motors for 2023 and 2024. The amendment would increase the contract amount by $50,000 from $50,000 to a not to exceed amount of $100,000 and authorize the interim general manager to do all things necessary to complete the project. Brian?
Thank you, President Martin. Much like the previous item, our Director of Operations, Danny Friend, did provide a short report on this on Thursday. Danny, do you have anything to add to the report from Thursday? We have nothing to add to our presentation from Thursday, but available for any questions the board may have.
Jed, any questions?
no, I sat down with interim general manager Macy and everything's fine.
Okay, Ivan? Robert? Amber? Saved you for last.
Thank you. Just one question, and it's more of a clarification question. The wording is just something that makes me go, when it said unexpected motor failures at well 24 and the Valley View booster station. Have we identified what processes may need to go into place to kind of better prepare for the unexpected? Because this is a contract 2 months in and we depleted it already. So just looking at the future, did we identify anything that we should have been doing or anything we need to increase that will watch those unexpected failures a little closer? Or watch for?
Great question. Good afternoon, President Martin, members of the board. Director Duff, we actually have an ongoing, we spoke about in past meetings, our process over the last 2 years to develop a more proactive preventative maintenance program. We've identified several wells that need to have rehabs, not only on the wet side, but on the electrical side. Many of those that we brought to the board. Yes, for example, well 24 has just recently gone through a well rehab 2 years ago. And then here recently an electrical rehab. And I'm not sure how to really say it other than it's unexpected. We didn't expect to see a motor vibration issue happen. So once we pulled it, but as far as looking forward, we do have some of the projects that you're concerned about or you bring up planned. Some of these items like the booster stations are 24. 24 is an odd one, but like the booster station, it just got ahead of us. We do have a complete rehab scheduled. Of course, the motor part of it it'll be excluded from that. But we are looking at our equipment. We're doing infrared testing that we've already conducted. They look for areas of hot spots. We've already made all the repairs from that. We also are doing a different efficiency testing that's provided through Edison. And with that, we're getting a better understanding of how they're performing and what to look for. We're installing vibration sensors in areas that have them ability to have it, or we're manually testing those.
Great.
So
I was reading in the general manager's report, the more detailed description of these two items and how they went out. So I was piecing 2 and 2 together, but for the public purposes, I just kind of wanted you to have the opportunity or MSWD to have the opportunity to explain to the public why they might be seeing us out there a little more often and what we're trying to do to gauge these kind of aging infrastructure issues. So I appreciated that clarification.
I don't have a
Thank you.
problem saying it. The program's not perfect, but it's getting there. However, it's beyond what we used to have.
It's
We used to
there.
be
It's a
100
step in the right direction. Thank
Yeah,
you
we're
very
in the right
much.
direction. Thank you.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, is there any?
I,
You want to make a
I'm
motion?
willing to make a motion
Okay, go ahead.
to, First Amendment contract agreement, Walton Motors and Controls for motor rewind repairs for water production well and booster pump motors for 23-24.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion, and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes,
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Griffith,
Aye.
Vice President Sewell,
Yes.
President Martin.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, under discussion items, item 10, Nancy Wright Regional Water Reclamation Security Facility Update. Do you have anything further on that?
No, President Martin, we do not.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board on that subject? Okay, item 11, Critical Services Center Administration and Administrative Update. Anything further on that?
No, we do not have a report this month.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Hearing none. Item 12, board members' compensation. Everybody had a chance to take a look at the handout that we were given on there showing the different, be thinking about what each of you would feel would be an acceptable rate. And if you, unless you don't feel that we should be taking a compensation increase, be prepared to submit that at a time in the not too distant future for a possible vote on it at perhaps the next meeting if we get if we have the
what do you
information.
want us to do, President? Well, you weren't using a microphone. I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry.
I heard parts of it. But
Yeah, what I want you to do is to take a look at the compensation chart. Have in mind a particular amount that you feel would be appropriate, and sometime, and probably the next meeting, what we'll do is we'll put it on the agenda for a vote, and if we are all in agreement that was a course of action we should take. So,
I think probably all of us more than likely thought about those issues already, and I'm ready to move forward with it.
okay, all right.
Can we discuss a little now? Or,
You sure? We can, it's on the agenda to discuss. We can't vote on it now, but.
no, I realize that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
at least to
sure, go
kind
ahead.
of get some thoughts out there.
Yeah.
So I looked at this. I said this the other day, people get really upset when you say, talk about money, and especially if you're giving yourself a raise. But to give you an example, so I think it was October 8th. I got paid $100 for a 14.5-hour day. That's $6.89 an hour, which is much less than half minimum wage. I don't know if people watch these meetings, honestly, but if you look at this, this is 293 pages for this month's session and meetings, and this is not atypical. Sometimes they're more depending on the quantity of stuff. And when I was on city council, people used to say, well, you guys, you just come in and you spend 2 hours and you're getting paid for all that. And it's really not 2 hours. Frequently on some of these, I spend 10 to 16 hours going through this line by line, looking at stuff, making my notes, typing them up so that I'm prepared. And so when I look at that, it's not just about this meeting, it's about all of this. There has been no compensation increase in over 20 years. I don't know anybody that has worked anywhere that hasn't had some kind of increase in 20 years, even if it's, well, on an hourly basis. Back in the day when I worked at McDonald's, I'd be lucky to get 15 cents. But so when I look at this and I see what the whole wide range is, what the allowable is, which is no more than 5% per year, that we haven't had one. I'm not comfortable going up to that amount. At the study session, Ivan threw out an amount of 240, which was like the average of everybody. So I kind of looked at that, and then what I did is said, well, I think what we need to do is to do this on an annual basis and bring this topic up every year when you talk about staff increases. You look at the CPI, you look at what's going on, so that if there is an increase, it's just a little itty bit, not this enormous amount that, people are going to see that and say, well, God, they doubled their salary or something like that. Not considering that there's been nothing for 20 years. And so what I did is I kind of looked at the numbers and said, well, 240, and then if we do this now, we're not going to want to do this again in 6 months. I just don't think that's fair to say, yeah, we're going to do it again in 6 months, but you wait until 2025. But if it was like this year coming up, CPI last month was 3.7, maybe it's not going to be that much. But if you did throw like a 3.7% in there, it would get probably close to 250 by the spring. Minimum wage is going up 3.2% in January. So just to give you an idea of what the percentages are. So when I looked at that, I thought 250 was a nice round number. I like round numbers. I don't like odd numbers. And I just thought that was quite reasonable given the amount of work that at least I put into this position. So that's just my thinking on this
Okay.
subject.
That's good input. Thank you. Ted?
I'm more at the $300 range. 20 years, this board has never had a raise. We're within the 5% where we're supposed to be. DWA is getting 400 a meeting. We always are comparing ourselves to other agencies or whatever. There's a lot of work that goes into here. At 240, somebody on minimum wage is still making more money than we are. This is a 20-hour-a-week deal. And there's other expenses. Sometimes we're not getting paid for things that we're actually doing, the time we're spending, dry cleaning, for instance, and things of that nature. You gotta go clear across the freeway for that. So, and it's not just about one meeting. There's two words, and let me explain myself. There's two words. Thought and thinking are two separate words, but they have a nexus. They connect together. When we go to a meeting, it's about thought. We're gathering that information. The next day is when or for me anyhow, the next day is when I start thinking about the information I gathered. So that meeting actually runs over into the next day. Then we gather that information, we think about it, and then we put it into play when we come here. The economic development meeting, for instance. What did all those numbers really mean for the water district? It meant that if we raise our rates, somebody may not be able to buy a house because it's already hard enough for them. They won't get that loan. So we have to really think of ways to keep the rates down. We put a lot of work and effort into this, and I feel that 300 is justified, and that's where I'd like to be at.
300?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ivan?
Yeah, I kind of just reiterate what I said on Thursday as far as I agree with Director Griffith that this is something we should at least look at every year. Much bigger fan of the incremental changes than these big jumps every 10 or 20, 25 years. I was comfortable with the average, but I do think, we're not going to visit it again in 6 months. I'd be comfortable with the 250. I think the 300, 307 is a stretch. Just looking at, if we did the 5% every year, there was quite a few years in that last 23 years where our employees didn't get a CPI increase or COLA increase. So I think the 250 would be a fair number. Thank you.
Okay. Amber?
I'm going to try and articulate my thoughts as best as I can. So this is something I was thinking about a lot over the weekend, and it's a hard topic to discuss, talking about money and people's relation to their worth and money can make things uncomfortable sometimes, but at the same time, something we do need to talk about. And what kept coming back to my mind was something that Director Bowman from DWA said to our board. And it was something that I hadn't thought of in the way that he did. And I think we're probably all guilty of this, thinking that it's doing our district favors. And he said, when we don't submit for reimbursement on our expenses or for reimbursement on costs that we spent serving our district, that in fact, we're actually not being honest by not showing what it actually costs to serve, what the service we provide actually costs the district. And so by hiding that, it doesn't give the public an understanding of just what we do each invest in our service to the community. And I hadn't thought of it that way. And that was just an interesting way. I'm a budget person, I'm an accounting person, and I didn't think of it in that relation. So it was just an interesting thing to kind of just think about. And then also, I think that in order to encourage a board that represents all of our community, we need to make sure it's something feasible for all of our community, not just the retired, not just the wealthy, but something that every representation of our community would be able to afford to participate in, and hopefully increase their willingness to participate in future elections or in future community government. And so I think a step in the right direction is obviously bringing this more in line with where it should have been. And I agree with everything said previously. We need to do it annually, evaluating it along with the COLA and everything for our employees. I too feel 250 is a reasonable amount, given that we wouldn't be looking at it next year, but again in 2025. Those things seem reasonable, but I just think that it's so much bigger than just what we feel our time is worth, what we feel is fair for that time. It's also about encouraging the equal opportunity involvement of our community. And as a mom, I represent something different than the four of you do at this point. And childcare is real. And if I'm here, my husband is not working because he's caring for our child, or we've had to pay for childcare. So in order to encourage more moms like myself or more part-time workers to make that sacrifice away from their family or their home responsibilities, we need to make it where the costs are equalized in that respect, so that it is an equal board, fairly representing everyone. So those were just the things that have been really going around in my brain over the weekend in regards to this topic. And I'm sorry it was kind of all over the place. I wasn't exactly prepared to talk about it today, but I hope that you all understood the gist of what I was trying to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Martin,
Yeah.
if I may, when we say 250 or 300, I know in our budget, we're at $1,000 right now. Our budget's at $1,000 a piece for up to 10 meetings.
Maximum, yeah.
So I was thinking at 300, maybe at 4 meetings maximum. Or what are we talking about here? 240, 250 for 10 meetings? Is that what I hear people are nodding their head?
250 for 10,
250 for up to 10 meetings.
$2,500 a month.
That's more than what I was thinking. I was at $900 or so, but yeah, that's acceptable too.
Just to clarify, the 10 meetings, that's in the water code? Or is
Uh,
that our policy?
I would ask our district council.
So that's in your.
That's in your policy
Okay.
that you've adopted. That's my understanding, is that in the year 2000, I think, it went to $100 for up to 10 meetings in a month. And it's water code. The water code does, there's a specific section of the water code that deals with compensation of water district directors. And section 20202 states that no ordinance adopted pursuant to this chapter shall authorize compensation for more than a total of 10 days in any calendar month. And so that's the code section that when that was increased from 6 to 10 days a month, I believe that's sometime after that, this district in the year 2000, I believe, changed it to 10 days a month. There is a county water district code section that reads differently than that, and we're a county water district. And that county water district code section deals with compensation of directors, and it limits it to 6 days in any calendar month. So there seems to be a conflict between those two code sections. And back in the year 2000, there was a decision made to follow section 20202, which says you can't exceed compensation for 10 days a month. And that's how the 10 days a month came about. So there's some ambiguity there in terms of whether the 6 days applies or the 10 days applies. It's not clear.
But our policy is at 10.
It's 10, and it's been 10 since the year 2000, since any of us were here, I think.
Okay.
10 days a month. While I'm talking, if the president of the board doesn't mind, I wanted to provide some further information to the board
Okay, go ahead.
that may be of some value to you. And it really kind of expands on what Director Duff was saying. And I just wanted to share with you that the state legislature and the governor this year enacted SB 329, which deals with compensation of council members. And in general law cities, their compensation is set by statute, right? And they hadn't had an increase since 1984. So it'd been decades since they got an increase, even though the cost of living had increased, I think, like 300% since that time period. And so in recognition of that and the points that Director Duff was raising, they enacted SB 329, which allows for significant raises in compensation of council members in general law cities. And in the League of California Cities publication on it, they addressed the issues that Director Duff raised. And they said the lengthy time commitments and limited pay discourage many residents from running for office, especially low-income residents, single parents, people of color, and young people. Some council members have even resigned before their terms expired because they could not devote time to council service and support their families at the same time. And so that's an important variable to consider when you're setting your compensation. It's not about the individual sitting here, but other people in the community that may wish to serve, that have to work, more than one job and wouldn't be able to serve if they're making $6 an hour. So.
Okay, just for a couple of items, clarification on there. Once again, what's the percentage rate that we can increase it each year? What is that amount?
5%.
5%. Are we sure that that's not, that we can retroactively apply that and give 5% each year, or is it 5% of the base as it stands right now?
So what the code says is the increase may not exceed an amount equal to 5% for each calendar year following the operative date of the last adjustment of the compensation which is received when the ordinance is adopted. And so the way staff and myself have interpreted that up to today's date is that had you instituted 5% increases back in after, let's say 2001, the first year after the last adjustment, then you would have increased it 5%. And then the following year, 2002, you would have increased it 5% above that number. And then in 2003, and that's how the calculation, and so on, and that's how the calculation was done.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we can do that rather than just saying 5% of our base now, and instead of adding it each.
Yeah, I don't think that would be the way you would do it. You wouldn't take the current number and increase it by 5%.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure.
And that's a good question, but it does specifically stay for each calendar year following the operative date of the last adjustment.
Okay.
And so we believe that you go back and you go through the process of what the cap would be now if you had increased it every year by 5%.
Okay. I have one question. So the board and management knows I did ask HR about California PERS. Which is something we haven't discussed, but is that within our?
I can't answer that question. I don't know whether you would be eligible. I mean, it's probably too late. The agencies I've worked with don't get CalPERS. Do you know if any of the other agencies out here get CalPERS, the board members?
Not that I'm aware of, but I'm not that familiar with the process.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I think that would be unusual if it's even permissible.
I know the city commissioners get it, but that's a different type of government over there.
city council members?
No, the commissioners. Council members
Oh.
and the commissioners both get it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, the Desert Hot Springs is a charter city, I believe.
Yes, it is.
And I don't know what their program is with CalPERS. I can't really answer that question.
Well, HR is looking into it right now. Thank you.
Any other comments?
No, I said my comments.
Yeah, Amber, anything further?
No, oh, yeah,
You were tempted. I saw that.
I was. I'm good, thanks.
Ivan?
Nothing bad.
Okay,
Before we move on, President Martin, I heard 4 people say 250 and 1 say 300. What would you like staff to bring back to the board
for the agenda?
for the agenda? Now, keep in mind that what number we bring, it will be an ordinance, and that ordinance can be modified as we're talking about it and discussing it at the next meeting. I just want to make sure that I at least start with the right number.
You already said 250.
250, 250? 250, okay,
And
250.
and would that be at 10 days a month or 6 days a month?
Oh,
10, I mean, I can tell you that most of the meetings, I'm not trying to be rude, but if I've got 10 meetings a month, you're going to dissuade people from participating in certain meetings that I think are important to us. So I would go with no more than 10.
And we did look at other county water districts and how they interpreted it, and they interpreted similar to the way that Mission Springs did back in 2000 when they adjusted, and they adjusted up to either adjusted up to 10 or they referenced this section 20202 of the water code, which caps it at 10.
Yeah, 10 meetings. One thing I did want to bring up is a lot of people don't realize in terms of the amount of work that goes into it. I think the public is under the impression of us getting paid for attending these board meetings and study session, things like that. But our obligations, our responsibilities extend way beyond that to other agencies, that we participate in, Urban Water Institute, all these different organizations that we participate in, and frequently there's a lot of work in preparation of these meetings, and a lot of work that's assigned to you in these meetings. So that's why I think a 10 is a fair number to apply this to. So. Okay, anything more on that topic? And you're going to bring that back at 250 for the next board meeting, right?
Yes, we'll bring that.
Sure.
Just for staff reiteration purposes, I also kind of unanimously heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that we were not going to put this on the annual review for the upcoming year, but that it would be for the 25-26 year to be annually considered after that point, starting with the 25-26 year. Is that what I heard from all of us?
I don't know about 25-26. I know that typically in the spring is when we did the staff increases, correct?
Right.
And so I think from my perspective, the appropriate time to bring that up would be during those staff increases. But if we're going to do this now, I don't feel it's appropriate to do one in 2024. Start with 2025 as an annual, and then we can discuss whether you do the 5% or just a CPI or what. But I think it should be an annual discussion.
I guess I misunderstood. I thought we could only do it if we vote on this next month, then that would mean next November of 25, or 24, we would have to do it again. No? Okay.
I believe that you could, because it would be a year, but I think from the way I look at it is the smart thing to do is make it the same thing as when you bring up staff, because it's all related. So here's what their increase is going to be. This is what you could, and this is what their percentage is in there. That way it's kind of on a regular schedule as opposed to being off schedule. And then someone forgets to put it on there. So I would
Makes
say
it easier for finance.
Yeah.
And then the second part to that comment was also, no, thank you. The second part to that is also, I don't want it to say 5% every year. Like Director Sewell brought out, there were several years where even our employees didn't get a COLA or CPI.
Yeah.
So I think it needs to follow, that's just my 2 cents, but I feel that it needs to follow whatever is done that year for employees in that respect.
You don't think we should get a cost of living increase then?
If our employees don't, no, I don't. If we can't afford to give it to the less than 50 people we have, then no, we shouldn't take anything.
Well, maybe we can put it in like that later.
Just making sure that we weren't automatically putting in the 5%. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, any questions or comments from the public? Dory?
No, sir.
Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. There's 2 items on the consent agenda: approval of minutes from the meeting, study session on September 14th, 2023, and the board meeting of September 18th, 2023. Also included on the consent agenda is the register of demands. Any questions or comments on the 2 consent agenda items?
I need to pull the register of demands.
Okay. I'm going to pull the register of demands for discussion. Any changes or corrections to the minutes of September 14th or September 18th? Hearing none. Okay. Register of demands totaling $7,417,718.70. Amber?
Thank you. Sorry, let me get organized here. I know that Arturo is not here, so I'm not expecting staff to be able to answer all of my questions, but I just had a couple things that for public that is looking at this. Just kind of wanted to make sure that there were some items clarified. One, I noticed that we had returned a deposit to Skyborn in the amount of $5,000 approximately, given that we're about to ask them for 200,000. I just was wondering if there may have been a better way to handle that in the future so that we're not handing money back and forth. Here, take this, but now we need it back kind of thing. So that was one concern that I had. Also, and I had mentioned this to Arturo, but just in case the public is equally concerned, and I have not gotten an answer on this yet, but there were $7,700 worth of account refunds issued to various customers across the board last month. And I was wanting to get some clarification from staff as to what the cause for such a large number of account refunds varied anywhere from $600 to as low as $3. But there was no mention of it in the general manager's report, and there was no indication as to the cause. So I just would like further information on that. And then lastly, regarding Urban Habitat, notice that last month we paid them 16,000, I believe it was approximately 16,000. And we also paid Casimar Group. It's not a lot, but it was a $300 bill for labor compliance in regards to Urban Habitat. And I just would like some clarification on why the bill was so high with them when I'm still hearing complaints from fellow directors that the trees aren't cut down that we voted on. And just trying to get a clearer picture as to what that 16,000 went for last month. And again, I know that Arturo is not here, but maybe he would be able to get back with me on those in the next couple weeks when he's back and feeling better.
The account adjustments, I would wait for Arturo, but I believe we can answer the questions regarding landscaping and urban habitat if you'd like.
Great.
Good afternoon, President Martin, members of the board. Again, the contract was awarded, if you recall, with two additional items above their annual cost. And we did finally get those 2 items taken care of. That's why their bill was larger on this register of demands. As far as the labor compliance component, both those items were subject to prevailing wage because they were, I forget the exact term, but they were elevated tree trimming, and that is subject to prevailing wage. Labor compliance requires them to submit their certified payroll and all the other submittals to the Department of Industrial Relations.
Okay, so that cost came to us in addition to the contract, then not part of the contract.
That's correct. So currently we do have a contract with Calzamar. I believe a secondary, I may misspoke on that, but we do have a contract with Calzamar, who's our labor compliance. So on all of our bigger projects, they'll provide us a proposal to, as required by law, to do the labor compliance component of that. And then they also do our ancillary contracts.
And so in paying them the larger amount, they've completed the work and that's why we paid them, or they required us to pay before they would go and do it?
No, we don't pay beforehand. So both of those
Makes
items, no, there's very few projects that require us to put some sort of deposit up front. And
Okay.
as a government agency, we typically don't do that. But in this case, we wouldn't have paid the invoice unless the actual work that was spelled out in the extra items where it was complete.
Okay, so the trees have all been removed and the dead brush that was supposed to be removed were removed.
So with respect to those two items, well, 25, the Horton, and also the Desert Crest, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I got a question. You say elevated tree trimming? Where did that take place?
That was done partially at Horton, the palm trees, and the other part was done at Desert Crest. So those items are, as opposed to, sometimes you may witness them here trimming the trees like the Palo Verde. Those two, they can do it from the ground level. So it's unfortunately, we don't write those requirements as far as prevailing wage goes, but those items are subject to prevailing wage.
I didn't know we had that many palm trees.
I believe there's 15. I want to say the number is either between 10 and 15 at the Horton plant.
So it's a lot of money per tree.
Understood, and that's primarily some of the reasons why we haven't ignored some of our vegetation and let it go. There's been some strategic discussion as far as letting it. We want to eliminate some of that so that we can prevent some of those costs in the future.
What other vegetation are you speaking of?
Some of the areas that have larger trees and things of that nature.
All right.
Ivan? Anything else from you?
Thank you.
Okay. With that, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, do
I
we
will second.
we have a motion and a second. Dory, a roll call vote, please.
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff. Director Duff,
Aye, sorry.
Director Griffith,
Aye.
Vice President Sewell,
Yes.
President Martin.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, moving on to reports, director's reports. I don't believe anybody gave theirs on Thursday, so Ted, I'll start it off with you.
All right, well, I'd just like to say that I think we're really coming along here as a board. Everybody's asking questions. I think that's wonderful. We're digging into the agenda, and I think the board's really doing a great job. I'm still for solar, and I think I think we made the right decision in another year. And as our strategic plan goes, it's definitely something that we should look into and keep in mind and make a long-term plan to get solar one day. I've enjoyed being here so far. Thank you.
Just want to make sure we're covering the meetings that you've attended, right? In your report.
Is this director comments or?
This is director's report where you go tell all about the
Okay.
meetings.
Oh, you want me to tell you about the last meetings then?
You
I
want,
won't have to do a director's report.
no, because you've already done it. So, yeah.
Okay. As I was looking this over, I noticed there was a lot of them that we don't get paid for. So we're going to some meetings that we don't. So the compensatable meetings I went to, besides the study session and the board here, and was the Desert Valley Building Association General Luncheon. And that was a good meeting. It's always good to go there and listen to what the other speakers have to say, and I enjoyed that. The other meeting here that was not compensatable, but I went anyways, it was the All Valley Mayor's Luncheon, and to listen to what was going on in the different cities was very informative. And That's all I have on here.
Okay. Ivan?
Yes, I have September 6th, All Valley Mayors and Tribal Luncheon. I think this is one of my favorite events every year. It's always nice to see kind of compare what's going on with Desert Hot Springs versus the rest of the valley. Quite a bit of new business down on the east end of the valley. And just about every city mentioned that they had additional housing coming in, so that's good news. Mayor Mattis, I liked his talk, and that he mentioned a lot of the things he didn't mention there, he will mention on November 16th at the State of the City. And then the other meeting I attended was September 13th, DVBA luncheon, was about the history and culture of the Agua Caliente Band of Cahuilla Indians. They talked quite a bit about their new museum and spa, which opens next month, but nothing really significant to report. Thank you.
Robert?
My cat ate my homework.
Do the best you can.
I will. Actually, I left all my stuff on the printer because I'm just a Nimrod today. But September 5th, I did do the DWA board meeting. I have no recollection what it was about. I did write it down in my notes, but again, they're on the printer. Same thing with September 12th, CVWD's meeting. The 17th, even though in the book it says I'm not listed, I was at the City of DHS 60th anniversary. I was actually there at the booth, helping them to serve water tasting. The 19th was DWA, and I do remember that was about petty cash policies, which was kind of interesting because I don't know that any of the agencies give cash out to their directors anymore because we all have cards and their credit card policies. And then the 26th was CVWD, and if I remember this correctly, was heavy on flood projects. And so one was, there was a flood control project, Thousand Palms, that they were authorizing for the final plans and to break it down into 3 separate sections. And very interesting how they're going to do that. And then a storm control project in North Cathedral City. So that was actually kind of interesting. Kind of feel like maybe we wish we all had done that a couple years ago, so we wouldn't have suffered what we did. But so that was all the meetings that I did last month that I can recall.
Okay. Amber?
All right. On the 12th, I attended the Desert Hot Springs Planning Commission meeting. They only had one item on their agenda. It was the desert storage specific plan. I did want to take a second and just give special thanks to all those commissioners for the attention to detail they are giving each of these plans. They actually stopped the whole process and had staff rewrite to have the existing property be beautified to match the new property being attached. Instead of allowing only the new landscaping and the new walls to be at the new center, they said, no, we need you to carry that out and upgrade your existing site as well. So it's nice that they're paying attention to those details. I also attended the DVBA luncheon. The speaker from Agua Caliente tribe was really impressive. And the thing, water is on my mind all the time now. And the thing that I just, the little factoid that I really enjoyed that from her speech was when they reaccessed their hot spring well, they carbon dated the water. And that carbon dated to just after the last ice age. And I just thought that was a very interesting scientific fact of how precious this water is that we get from our springs. On the 17th, my family and I also attended the 60th anniversary celebration at the park. I saw President Martin, Director Griffith, and many of our staff there keeping everyone hydrated. It was nice and hot that day, and they were out there serving water and keeping all those sweaty kids hydrated. So that was really wonderful. On the 27th, I attended the first half of the Planning Commission's special Water 101. And it was nice to see the commissioners and staff members take time to come here and listen to all of our history and the stuff that we all get excited about. And I think that it was nice seeing staff kind of intrigue their thought process on just how important water really is at the center of everything we're doing here. Can't do anything without it, right? And then on the same day, I also attended the San Gorgonio Pass Regional Water Alliance meeting. There is so many things happening in that district. They had a large in-depth discussion regarding the California conservation way of life that Director Griffith traveled to speak on our behalf about. They shared a lot of our district's concerns regarding the feasibility and the cost that will be associated with meeting those conservation mandates. They also talked about the chromium-6 mandates and the PFAS updates that they had. And I did want to mention to council, the suggestion was to look into the class action lawsuit that is occurring against a big manufacturing company, I believe, regarding the PFAS chemicals, that window may be closing, and whether we know we have it or not, we may want to join the class before we don't have the opportunity. And then the only other thing General Manager Eckhart was sharing with all of us, the completed feasibility study of their backbone pipeline extending all the way to Cabazon and what that project will entail, and the many various districts and cities and municipalities that will all have to coordinate their grant efforts to get that backbone project done. Great meeting as usual, and that is all I did. Thank you.
Very good, very good. On September 5th, I attended a city council meeting. One of the items that they passed was a resolution to observe Cesar Chavez Day as a public holiday. Bring to mind that which is, by the way, March 31st. Is that a holiday that's that we have with the water district?
No, we have 10 set holidays, and then we have 3 floating holidays, which allows the staff to honor whatever they feel is important. That way we're not dictating to them, such like a Cesar Chavez or Columbus Day, or so that's one of the reasons why we do the 3 floating holidays. It gives the flexibility for them to follow their own path.
Because I believe it's already a state holiday, and maybe even beyond the federal. I'm not sure, but okay, that's good. On September 7th, Desert Valley Builders Association Legislative Affairs meeting. The primary focus was on damage caused by Tropical Storm Hillary and efforts to repair and mitigate the damages. I was very impressed by the way that the various jurisdictions came together to repair some of the damage and get streets back open and things like that. I thought it was going to be a lot slower process than it turned out to be, and they're doing a pretty good job. September 11th, DVBA board meeting. We had a budget presentation. Nothing else to report there. September 13th, DVBA general membership luncheon. So well attended. I don't want nothing beyond what has already been said today. September 19th, city council meeting. City manager's report addressing complaints involving Frontier Communications, and the type of complaints they were getting was illegal trespassing on the part of their employees, easement issues, and poor quality of work. That can't be a good promotional thing for Frontier Communications. Also, they talked about significant arrests of homeless on Palm Drive, and crimes such as trespassing, traffic violations, public intoxication, etc. That required amendments to the general plan use, etc., and zoning. Services agreement with Martha's Vineyard to operate an access hub on Hacienda Avenue. I understand that that's drawing quite a bit of public scrutiny with that, because it's what do they call it? A NIBI? NIBI.
Yeah.
On my backyard. Yeah. Yeah. September 26th, Riverside County Board of Supervisors meeting. Getting a lot of public comments during the Board of Supervisors meeting on short-term rental, and a lot of the complaints coming in. So there's a lot of the same issues as those taking place right here in Desert Hot Springs. And I would say the opposition is about 90%. 90%. there was pursuit of regarding Resiliency Center grant to address emergency storm damage. That passed. Automatic aid agreement, emergency and fire services. Storm damage repair work on Box Canyon. There was a report on that. Commendations for county personnel for outstanding performance. Public safety personnel won 3 of the 5 awards. Public hearing on several different items, board member comments. Non-compensated meeting on the 6th, Greater Coachella Valley Chamber of Commerce, All Valleys Mayor's Luncheon. It was a well-attended event. I can't add much to what's already been said, except I thought Victoria Lort did a very good job of being the moderator for that. On the 14th of September, attended both the CVAG and Energy Sustainability Committee and the Coachella Valley Conservation Commission. Significant discussion video of a balloon causing an explosion. That's a Mylar balloon causing an explosion of the power lines. And there's a movement towards making it illegal. And I think that the prevailing the thought was, rather than making it illegal, to mount a public information campaign on the hazards. And then it wasn't that long ago that we found out that an 8-year-old girl suffocated to death as a result of her interaction with the Mylar. I don't know the details of how that happened, but that was apparently the Mylar balloon actually caused her suffocation. So, and we're all familiar with what the Mylar balloons are, right? They usually have helium in them and are like foil looking things. Anyway, on the 17th, City of Desert Hot Springs 50th anniversary celebration at Mission Springs Park. Nothing more to add than what's already been said. On the 25th, Campus Museum Foundation Board Meeting. There was a presentation on the financial reports and long-range planning. On the 27th, Agua Caliente Water Authority Board. There was Section 33 groundwater monitoring wells project update. There was a fiscal report, and they announced my reappointment by the tribal council to sit another 3 years on the water authority board. So I was really liked going to that event. So with that, we'll move on to the general manager's report.
Thank you, President Martin, members of the board. The general manager's report, we discussed a little bit of it on Thursday. Still available to answer any questions. The government and public affairs did give the report on Thursday. We were going to give our finance report today. We did provide a update in cash flow and things of that nature as part of the BOA item. But as far as the graph that in the table that we normally provide, Arturo will be sending that out separately and we'll be placing on our website for those that aren't available to see it today. So I apologize about Arturo not being here.
Okay. Anything further?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 17, district council comments.
Yes, we'll have a brief closed session on the item number 20, which is conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.91. And that's Mission Springs Water District versus DWA. And then you also have item 19. I don't know whether you're having a closed session on that, but that is public employee performance review pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, and the title is interim general manager.
Okay. Now we go to director's comments. Ted, you've already given yours. Do you have anything more you want to add?
Well, I got 2 things if you don't mind.
Okay, go ahead. Sure, sure. Go ahead. Microphone.
Well, thank you. Tonight after, I think it's at 5 or 6 o'clock, I can't remember which, but City Hall is looking at having the residents come to look at the different artwork for the murals. And so I want to remind everybody about that. This landscaping I'm not sure what we're paying that landscaper for. We have a contract with them for, I think, $74,000. The shrubs are already supposed to be taken care of. If they're doing the weeds, that should already be taken care of. We have a contract with them for them to cut down the trees, but instead of cutting down the dead trees that are an eyesore, they're climbing palm trees. So I'm going to request now, if the directors have no objections, before any more maintenance above what the contract already is awarded, I want to see photos of what they're going to do and what we're paying for. That's all.
Ivan?
Just a quick announcement, Saturday, October 28th, the Desert Hot Springs Rotary Club with a lot of the other nonprofits in town is hosting a Happy Healthy Halloween at Mission Springs Park. So bring your children and have a fun time.
Okay. Robert?
I don't have a whole lot. September 26th, are we in September? No, we're October. See, I don't even know what month that is. October 26th, Desert Hot Springs Historical Society is having their soup supper fundraiser. It is at the VFW. You can buy your tickets online at dhshistoricalsociety.org. And this month's featured speaker is Carrie Berman, talking about Enchanted Valley, lots of different hidden places in the Coachella Valley. So hopefully some people will be interested, and I will see you there. Other than that, I don't have anything.
Okay. Amber?
I don't have anything specific, and I was trying to flip through the pages really quick to remind everyone of our upcoming Water 101 in Marion's absence, and I cannot find the date. And I am trying to see it here.
It'll be the last Thursday of the month, the 26th,
26th at the library at Brian,
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. Okay, Marion, we told everyone. Thanks.
And that one's free.
Yeah, okay. I don't have anything. So with that, we'll take a 5-minute break before going into closed session.
I can't hear you, President Martin.
Counselor, could you report on closed session, please?
There was no reportable action taken on either closed session item.
Okay, anything further from the board? Okay, meeting is adjourned.